One day, your child is going to say, "Daddy, watch this," for the very last time. And the heartbreaking thing is that you probably won't realize it's the last time while it's happening. You see, there won't be a warning. There won't be a notification. There will be no reminder. It's just going to be another ordinary moment. And then one day, those moments become memories, and they're gone. Because childhood doesn't disappear all at once. It doesn't announce its ending. It disappears quietly. One bedtime story at a time. One family dinner at a time. One game of catch at a time. Most fathers don't miss these moments because they don't care. They miss them because they're carrying too much. Too much work, too much pressure, too much responsibility, and the constant weight of trying to provide for the people they love. And somewhere along the way, they become physically present, but emotionally unavailable. They're home, but they haven't yet fully arrived. And if I'm honest, I've lived there too. There have been moments when my kids wanted my attention and I gave them whatever was left over after the world got the best of me. Not because I didn't love them, but because I was exhausted, because I was distracted, because I was mentally somewhere else. And that's why today I want to share something that has completely changed the way I think about fatherhood. It's a tool that I created exactly for men who are struggling with this, and I call it the 5 core moments. These are 5 ordinary moments that happen almost every day inside your home, but have the power to shape your relationship with your children for a lifetime. And before this episode is over, I'm going to walk you through a simple exercise that will help you become more present the moment you walk through the front door. Because fatherhood is not lost in years, it's lost in moments. And the beautiful thing is, it's rebuilt the exact same way. And in today's episode, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. Welcome to the Dad Nation podcast, the place where high-performing men are empowered to reclaim their home, their health, and their happiness while enhancing their career success. You see, in a world full of noise, burnout, and mediocrity, we believe what's missing is courageous and compassionate leadership in the home, because when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. You see, this isn't just a podcast. It's a movement for men who refuse to settle for less in their families, in their focus, and their future. We are curse breakers and we are legacy makers. I am your host, Mitchell Osmond, and I'm honored that you've chosen to invest your most valuable asset, which is your time, with me today. Now let's get into it. All right, brother, welcome back to the Dad Nation podcast. And if this is your first time listening, my name is Mitchell Osmond, and I'm thrilled to be here to share what's on my heart today with you. And it comes from a place that I've learned from in many different ways, a lot of lessons that I've learned the hard way. And so I'm excited to share this part of my story and share this tool with you today, because today we're going to be talking about something that I believe is one of the greatest challenges facing modern fathers. And it's not a lack of love, it's a lack of presence. You see, most fathers do not need more time. They need better presence. They need to be more intentional with the time that they have. And that's a very, very different problem, because most men assume the solution is actually more free time, a lighter schedule, less responsibility, more margin, more weekends, more vacations. But many fathers have discovered something very surprising, that even when they finally get the time, they still struggle to be present. Because the issue was never the calendar. The issue was the mind. You see, the body came home, but the mind stayed at work. Have you ever been there? I know I have. The body sat at the dinner table, but the mind stayed trapped in tomorrow's meeting. The body tucked the kids into bed, but the mind stayed buried in unfinished tasks. The body was present, but the father wasn't. And if this sounds familiar, brother, listen, you are not alone. I think this is one of the greatest struggles facing high-performing men today, especially for these career-driven men like myself. I face this struggle every day of my life, and I coach a lot of men who experience the same challenge. You see, we struggle with it, not because we don't care, but because, like I said, we're carrying pressure, we're carrying responsibility, we're carrying stress, we're carrying expectations, we're carrying the weight of leadership, provision, deadlines, and performance. And by the time we get home, we have very little left to give. And that's why I want to revisit something that I actually taught in much more detail back in episode 91. The title was, "You Don't Need More Time, You Need This 3-Step System." If you haven't heard that episode, bookmark it, take a look at it, because I really teach on this concept in a much more detailed way. But today's episode is really a practical application of that idea that I taught, okay? Today, we're going to talk about how to win the moments that matter the most. Now, I think the best place to kick off this episode is to really talk about the origins of time and what it actually means, all right? The ancient Greeks had two very different words for time, okay? One was Chronos, and the other is Kairos. Now, Chronos is the time most of us think about today, every single day. It's the way we measure time in seconds and minutes. It's schedules, it's meetings, it's deadlines, it's productivity, it's efficiency, it's calendars. When you look at time through the lens of Chronos, that meaning of the word time, we're thinking questions like, what time is it? How much time do I have? How efficiently am I using my time? And there's nothing wrong with Chronos. Business runs on Chronos. Schools run on it. Families need it. But there's also another type of time that we need to consider. And this is Kairos. Okay? This is the other meaning of the word time. Now, very different. Kairos isn't measured by minutes. It's measured by meaning. Okay? A moment that matters. A moment that changes everything. A moment that leaves an imprint. A moment that becomes a core memory. We all have those. A Kairos is when your son unexpectedly opens up to you about something that he's been carrying. Kairos is that moment when your daughter reaches for your hand. Kairos is that bedtime conversation that lasts 3 minutes but gets remembered for 30 years. Kairos is hearing, Dad, watch this, and you actually looking up from your phone and taking in that moment. The problem is that most of us are incredibly good at managing Chronos while accidentally missing Kairos. We're masters of efficiency, but we're beginners at presence. Now, many of you know that I'm a faith-based person, so I'm going to share some Bible passages for you here in this episode, because there's so much in here that helps us with how to understand time and how to make the most of it. So whether you are a believer or not, this is going to add value to you. If you don't want to think about it as the Bible, think about it as an ancient text, an ancient book of wisdom, because that's what it is. But the scripture says in Ephesians 5:15-16, be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity. Now, the Apostle Paul wrote this, and notice that he didn't say, make the most of every minute. He says, make the most of every opportunity. That's Kairos language. That's not Chronos language. Moments, windows, opportunities that don't stay open forever. And fatherhood is absolutely full of them. Another scripture from Psalm 90, verse 12 says, teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Not count our days. It says number them. What does it mean to number your days? To feel their weight, to understand their value, to understand how quickly they disappear. If you're just thinking about days as some ambiguous number that you don't really know how much you have left versus numbering your days, feels very different, right? Fatherhood disappears quietly, just like those days, not dramatically, quietly. One day it's the diapers, then it's kindergarten, then it's sports, then it's driver's license, then it's moving trucks. And somewhere in the middle of all that, you blink. One statistic hits me every single time I hear it, that researchers estimate that by the age of 12, you've heard me say this before, parents have already spent roughly 75% of the total time they will spend with their child before that child leaves home. Just sit with that for a moment. If your child is 10, 11, 12, you're much closer to the last bedtime story than the first one. You're much closer to the last game of catch than the first one. You're much closer to the last daddy watch this than the first one. And again, this isn't about guilt. This is about awareness. Because awareness changes fathers, and intentional fathers change families. You see, you can spend hours around your children and never truly be with them. Let me say that again. You can spend hours around your children, but never truly be with them. Or you can spend 10 fully present minutes with them and create a memory that lasts a lifetime. That is the power of Kairos. Now, I want you to go into these 5 core moments with understanding this concept. And so from this point on, we're not talking about Chronos, okay? We're talking about Kairos. I want you to think about time with that lens for the rest of the episode. Because here's what I've learned. Great fathers are not built through grand gestures. We get it wrong all the time. They don't want the big lavish gift, the big lavish vacation. That's not what's going to serve them well. Great fathers are built through repeated intentional moments. And the good news is that most of these moments are already happening. You don't need to add more to your calendar. You don't need to add another parenting course. You don't need a perfect schedule. You simply need to become more intentional inside the moments that already exist. These 5 core moments are 5 opportunities that happen almost every single day. There are 5 opportunities to connect, 5 opportunities to lead, 5 opportunities to reinforce their identity, 5 opportunities to build trust, 5 opportunities to create Kairos moments inside of ordinary life. And the first one is something almost every family already has access to. I call them communion moments. Now, I want you to think about communion moments as the dinner table moments. And I know what some of you are thinking, Mitch, our family barely eats together. Trust me, I get it. You got sports, you got practices, shift work, business, travel, activities, life, yada, 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 whatever. I'm not talking about perfection. Remember, I said that. I'm talking about intentionality. Because the dinner table has always been one of the most powerful places for connection. And in fact, through Scripture, we constantly see God himself using tables, using meals, using conversations, using shared experiences. Ever heard of something called the Last Supper? Very pivotal moment, right? Eating together around a table. Research from Harvard's Center on the Developing Child suggests that regular conversations with engaged adults are one of the strongest predictors of healthy emotional development in children. Now think about that. Not expensive vacations, not bigger houses, conversations. That's it. Ordinary conversations with parents who are paying attention. And that's why I believe the dinner table is one of the most underutilized opportunities for connection in modern parenting, because this is where your children slowly reveal themselves. You see, they rarely sit down and announce, "Hey, Dad, here's everything I'm struggling with." That's not how it works. Instead, little pieces come out over time. One comment, a quick story, a question. And if you're paying attention, you begin discovering who your children are becoming. But the problem is that many of us are physically sitting at the table while mentally checking our phones. Researchers estimate that the average person checks their phone somewhere around 90 to 100 times per day. Think about that. 90 to 100 times. And most of us don't even realize we're doing it anymore. We reach for it automatically without even thinking, without intention, without awareness. And every time we do, we communicate something very powerful. We don't communicate it intentionally, but powerfully. We communicate this. This thing has my attention. We communicate that this fancy, expensive, shiny box is more important than the rest of you. I wonder how many meaningful conversations have died because a parent picked up their phone at exactly the wrong moment. I wonder how many invitations into a child's heart were missed because dad was checking one more email, one more text, one more notification, one more score, one more headline, one more thing that won't matter next week, while the person sitting across the table absolutely will. So one of the first things and simplest things you can do as a father is to ask better questions around that table. Not how was school? You ask that question every day. Every parent listening to this show already knows the answer to that question. How was school? Fine. Right? That's if you're going to ask a dead-end question, you're going to get a dead-end answer. All right. Instead of asking that question, you might ask these questions instead. Hey, Jason, what made you laugh today? You know, my son's name is Jet. What was the best part of your day, Jet? What was something that was difficult today? Who did you spend time with today? If you could relive one moment from today, what would it be? I love those questions. These questions create space, and connection grows in that space. Now, I hope that makes sense. Communion moments. The second core moment is what I call closing moments. And yes, these all start with C because I am a psycho and I use letters and acronyms and alliteration to remember everything. Hey, brother, let me ask you something. And I want you to really think about this. Are you winning at work, but quietly kind of losing ground at home? Maybe you're the guy people rely on. You stay calm in meetings. You carry that pressure all day. And you kind of wear that like a badge of honor. But maybe when you walk through the front door at home, your wife feels distant. Conversations feel shorter. And instead of being excited to come home, maybe work feels easier. Nothing is broken, but something is slowly drifting. And if you're telling yourself right now, I'm going to fix this when things slow down, or I'm going to fix this when things get easier, if you're honest with yourself, you already know they won't slow down. They won't get easier. Well, the high-performance husband is for men who are done coasting. It's for men who want to win at home like they win at work. You see, this isn't therapy. It's not about fixing your wife. It's not for men who want quick hacks. It's for men who want to be calm under pressure, strong in their body, clear in their thinking, and to become the man that your wife and kids look up to with pride. So if you're listening to this and you know that what got you here won't get you where you want to go, I want you to go to dadnationco.com/accelerator or click the link in the show notes below, and then you can apply to join this accelerator and join myself and many other like-minded men who are leveling up in their home, in their health, and their happiness. They're winning all year long. It's a 12-month mentorship. It's going to change your life. All right, now let's jump back into the episode. Closing moments. What are closing moments? They're bedtime moments. And honestly, I think these might be some of the most powerful moments in all of fatherhood, because bedtime is where the identity gets reinforced. It's where emotional security gets built. It's where children often carry the atmosphere of the day into sleep. Think about it. Right? At the end of the day, everything slows down. The distractions fade. The house gets quieter and the walls come down. And often that's when children become the most receptive. Any father here knows that they've seen that. They open up. And some of my favorite conversations with my son happened at bedtime. Not because I planned them, but because that's when he finally opened up. And it's amazing how children suddenly become philosophers at 8:47 p.m., right? 13 minutes before bedtime or whenever your kid's bedtime is. Questions about life, questions about God, questions about friendships, questions about fears, questions about things that they've been carrying all day. And many fathers accidentally rush these moments. Why? Because they're tired. And trust me, I get it. I've been there. I've done it too. I still do it sometimes. Because you want the day to be over. You want to sit on the couch. You just want a few minutes to yourself. But sometimes the most important work of fatherhood happens in those final few moments. Now, again, a scripture to share with you, because this is one that I actually recite to my son, and it's a blessing. And this is not new. I'm not reinventing the wheel. Thousands and hundreds of, probably millions of fathers over the years have repeated these words to their children when they put them down to sleep. And it's called the Aaronian blessing. It's Numbers 6:24-26. And it says, "The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace." Like I said, for thousands of years, fathers have spoken these blessings over the children. And I do it today. Why do I do that? Because I think that's something that we've largely lost. Speaking identity, speaking life into your children. And forget about the scripture. Forget about the blessing. Okay? What if your child regularly heard, "I'm proud of you. I love you. You're strong. You're so smart. You're so kind," right before they go to bed. That's huge. It's huge, right? Because that plants a seed in their subconscious mind. Because the gates to the subconscious mind open up when they go to sleep. And what happens? They begin to ruminate on those words. It's powerful. You know, Proverbs 18:21 says that the power of life and death are in the tongue. In the tongue. Words matter. Words matter, especially from dad. And years from now, your children probably won't remember most of the toys you bought them, but they will remember how you made them feel. They'll remember whether they felt safe, whether they felt loved, whether they felt seen, or whether they felt known. So closing moments are opportunities to reinforce their identity, not their performance, their identity. Not, I'm proud of what you did. I'm proud of who you're becoming. See, those are very different. Don't praise the prize. Praise the process. Don't praise the prize. Praise the process. Because if we don't praise the process, they're never going to learn from it. Don't say, I'm proud of what you did. Say, I'm proud of who you're becoming. Praise the process, the hard work they did. These are very different messages. And children carry that emotional atmosphere into their sleep, like I said. So you want to make sure that it's the right one. Core moment number 3, car moments. I love car moments. And if you're a parent, you've probably already experienced this. Your child has been quiet all day. You ask questions at dinner, nothing. You ask questions at home, nothing. You ask questions at bedtime, nothing. Then suddenly, halfway through a drive somewhere, they start talking and talking and talking. And you think, where did this come from? Well, there's something powerful about side-by-side conversations. Eye contact I think eye contact sometimes can feel intimidating, especially for children. But sitting beside someone or behind someone slightly in that situation, this often feels safer than sitting in front of them, face to face. There's less pressure, there's less intensity, there's less expectation. This is just human behavioral sciences here. This is what we're talking about. This is why some of the deepest conversations happen when nobody is trying to force one. You want to think about that with your relationship with your wife. Some of the best conversations with me and my wife happen when we're on the drive, right? Standing shoulder to shoulder, sitting shoulder to shoulder, not face to face. It could be a drive to hockey, a drive to the grocery store, an ice cream run, a random errand, ordinary moments. Kairos opportunities happen inside these every single day. I love this passage from James 1:19. It says, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. I needed that. I need to be reminded of that. Because I think fathers, I don't know any man who didn't need to hear that. I was on a group coaching call last night and we were talking about this. But the frustration and the anger and the way we lose our cool. Why is that? Why are we like that? Because often many of us are better at solving than we are at listening, right? Be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. But problem is we hear a problem and we immediately start offering solutions, advice, fixes, strategies. But sometimes our children and our wife don't need our solutions. They need someone to listen. Sometimes the greatest gift a father can give is curiosity. Tell me more. What was that like? How did that make you feel? What happened next? Help me understand. Right? Questions open doors, but assumptions close them. And when we don't listen and we give a strategy, we're making assumptions. But when your child opens up in the car, don't waste that moment. Right? Put the phone down, turn off the podcast, ignore the notification, because what they're offering you in that moment is far more valuable. They're offering you access to their heart. And that's one of the greatest gifts a father can receive. All right, car moments. Good stuff, good stuff. Hopefully this is hitting home for you today. Core moment number 4. I call these correction moments. And this, if I'm being honest, is probably the one that convicts me the most, because children learn a lot from what we teach, but they learn even more from who we become under pressure. Think about it. Most fathers believe that they're teaching their children during calm moments. That's true to an extent, but some of the deepest lessons get taught when things go wrong. When I think about my childhood, a lot of the hard lessons I learned was my dad was losing his mind, right? When the milk gets spilled, when the room isn't cleaned, when the attitude shows up, when the disrespect happens, when someone breaks the rule, when frustration enters the room, that's when leadership gets imprinted. Because in those moments, your children aren't just learning what you believe, they're learning how you handle pressure. They're learning how you regulate your emotions. They're learning what strength actually looks like. And they're learning whether power feels safe or not. That's a big one. Because years later, your children may not remember exactly what they got disciplined for, but they will remember how it felt to be corrected by you. They'll remember your tone. They'll remember your face. They'll remember whether you felt safe or unpredictable. I was talking to a client last week about this very thing, and he was talking to me about it, how he gets so frustrated with his kids, and he comes off strong, and he yells at them or whatever. We talked about this idea of connection before correction. How are you connecting with these kids before you correct them? Right? That's so, so important. How are you modeling that for them so that they learn to do this themselves one day? And why do we struggle with this so much? Well, I think a lot of us grew up believing that anger equals authority, that volume equals leadership, that intensity equals influence. But I don't know if that's the case. I mean, it might be effective, but it's probably not healthy. I'm going to pepper a bunch of this episode with scriptures. Here's another one from Proverbs 15, verse 1. It says, "A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." Let me say that one again. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Notice it doesn't say a weak answer, a passive answer, a permissive answer. It says a gentle answer. Gentle is not weak. Gentle is controlled strength. And you see, brother, anyone can lose their temper. It doesn't take a strong man to do that. It's very easy. Anyone can explode. Anyone can react. And even toddlers can do that. That doesn't make you a man. But it takes maturity to stay regulated when emotions are high. That's what makes a gentle, strong, controlled man. And fathers, our children are watching. They're watching how we handle disappointment. They're watching how we handle stress, how we handle conflict. And eventually they learn to handle those things in the same way. One of the greatest lies that fathers believe is, if my kids obey me, I've succeeded. That is not the case. Yes, obedience matters, but that's not the goal. You see, the goal isn't simply raising compliant children. The goal is raising emotionally healthy adults. Adults who know how to regulate themselves. Adults who know how to tell the truth. Adults who know how to take responsibility. Adults who know how to repair their relationships. Another passage here for you from Ephesians 6 and 4, and I love this one. It says, in the context of parenting, fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and the instruction of the Lord. But here's what I want you to listen to. The word here, exasperate. That's important, okay? Because it's possible to correct behavior while damaging connection. It's possible to enforce rules while creating distance. It is very possible to win the battle and lose the relationship. I know I've failed here, and many fathers have failed here. I had a guy open up on our group call last night about this exact same regret that he has, and he's now repairing his relationship with his kids as they're becoming adults. You see, there have been moments when I've reacted when I should have responded. There's two different things, reacting versus responding. There are moments I've spoken from frustration instead of wisdom. Moments I've let stress from other areas of life leak into my parenting and in my marriage. Let's be real. All of this stuff applies to our wives as well. But here, listen, the goal is not perfection. Don't kick yourself. Or remember to have grace for yourself. The goal is not perfection. It's awareness. When you fail, what do? You repair. You apologize. You own it. You tell the truth. Because one of the most powerful things a father can say is, "Buddy, Dad got that wrong. I'm sorry. Will you forgive me?" Do you know what that teaches? It teaches humility. It teaches accountability. It teaches emotional maturity. And it teaches our children that mistakes don't have to destroy relationships. Correction does more than obedience. It teaches emotional safety. And emotional safety becomes the foundation for trust. So we can take these correction moments and they can help our relationships, or they can hinder them. And ultimately, we have to decide what we do with those moments. Hey, brother, if you are listening to this show, you've most likely built a successful career. You handle pressure, you lead teams, and you get results. But when was the last time you really connected with your wife beyond the calendar, the kids, and the to-do list? Well, if that sounds like you, I have a free gift for you today called the Connection Code, which are 50 questions to break the silence, spark the fun, and bring the fire back. These questions are going to help you learn what she truly desires from you, to break out of the routine and to rediscover fun, and to spark deeper passion and connection without forcing awkward conversations. Listen, most men assume their wives feel loved, but the best husbands ask great questions and keep the connection alive. So if your date nights feel more like board meetings, and if you've gone from soulmates to roommates, and I want you to download this connection code for free and start the kind of conversations that bring you closer tonight. You can grab your copy at dadnationcode.com/code or hit the link in the show notes below. All right, let's get back into it. The last one, and potentially my favorite, is called cornerstone moments. These are one-on-one moments. Just you and one child. No siblings, no distractions, no agenda, just intentional connection. And I think these moments are becoming increasingly rare, not because fathers don't care, but because life moves fast. We're busy. We got multiple kids. The calendar's busy. The job is busy. Everything feels rushed. But here's what I've learned. Children don't just want access to their father. They want access to their father individually. They want to feel known. They not as part of the family, not as one of the kids, but as them, as individuals for who they uniquely are. And the beautiful thing is that these moments don't need to be extravagant. Some fathers, hear one-on-one time and they immediately think that they got to go to Disneyland or some big weekend trip or a big experience or an expensive memory. That's not what I'm talking about. Yeah, if you got the resources and capital and all that and the time to do that, fine, go fill your boots. But it doesn't need to be that. I'm talking about breakfast before school. I'm talking about a quick walk around the block, a trip to get ice cream, one-on-one, throwing the football in the backyard, going for a coffee, running errands together. 10 intentional moments, because the activity matters far less than the message. And the message is, you matter enough for me to slow down. That's what children hear. They don't hear we're going for ice cream. They don't hear we're going to go run errands. They don't hear we're throwing a ball. What they hear is, Dad chose me. Dad enjoys being with me. Dad spends time with me. Dad notices me. And that message becomes part of their identity. And one of the greatest gifts you can give your children is helping them feel deeply known. Not managed, not supervised, known. Can I give you something that may be a little bit convicting to think about? I know it convicts me a lot. Whether you're a person of faith or not, you may have heard of a man named Jesus. A lot of us think that he was the Messiah, the Savior. Some people think he was a prophet. Some people think he was a really great man. But whatever your perspective on Jesus is, here was one thing that he did well. He modeled this constantly. In Mark 10, we see this story about children coming to him, sit on his knee and talk with him. And Jesus' disciples trying to push them away. And Jesus responds, "Let the little children come to me." I love that. He was a popular guy. But he was never too important for the children. Never too busy, never too distracted, never too preoccupied. And if we're honest, sometimes we are. So if Jesus can make time for random children, surely I can make time for my own flesh and blood. All right. I mean, I don't want to preach at you here. I'm preaching to myself. Okay. I needed to hear this today. But if you're like me, sometimes, unfortunately, children get the leftovers. And this is true for our wives too. But our children get our leftover energy, the leftovers of our attention, the leftovers of our focus. But children were never meant to live on leftovers. They need connection. They need presence. They need intentionality. And so these cornerstone moments help build that. So years from now, your children won't remember every conversation. They won't remember every outing. They won't remember every activity, but they will remember how it felt to be with you and only you. Now, I want you to recall that statistic that I shared in the beginning of the episode. The average person checks their phone somewhere between 90 to 100 times every single day. I want you to think about that. 90 to 100 times every day without even realizing it. And while technology itself isn't the enemy, obviously, the distraction it causes is. That's the enemy. Because attention is one of the greatest gifts that you can give another human being. Doesn't matter if it's your kids, if your wife, your friends, whatever. It's something that's so rare. It's a beautiful gift. When you give someone your attention, you're giving them a portion of your life that you will never get back. Let me say that again. When you give someone your full undivided attention, you are giving them a portion of your life that you will never get back. And our children know when they have it, and they know when they don't. There's another statistic that I shared a few weeks ago in an episode that many parents spend less than 30 minutes per day in meaningful conversation with their children. Not logistical conversation, not put your shoes on, brush your teeth, did you finish your homework, but meaningful conversation, connection, curiosity, presence, right? These moments, these connection moments, these car moments, these communion moments, this Kairos time we're spending, 30 minutes or less. And then there's that statistic that we talked about earlier that by the time our kids are 12, over 75% of the time with them is gone. I mean, think about that. If you only have 30 minutes a day or less, that's not a lot of time. Every time I hear that, it stops me in my tracks because it reminds me that fatherhood isn't disappearing someday. It's disappearing now. One ordinary day at a time, one ordinary dinner, one ordinary bedtime, one ordinary car ride. And that's what makes this so important, because someday you will give everything to have just one more ordinary day with your young kids. There's going to be one day when you're 85, 86 years old, you would trade every cent you have to come back to where you are today. So as we start to wind up this episode, I want to give you this exercise that I think would be very powerful for you, because the question becomes, well, this is all fine and good, but how do we actually do this? Because as you know, I know that you're listening and you're a father, you're probably a husband. There's a high chance that you probably agree with everything that I just said. But the challenge isn't understanding it. The challenge is living it, because life is busy, work is demanding, stress is real. And most men don't intentionally decide to become emotionally unavailable. It just happens. One meeting bleeds into the next. One problem becomes another. One stressful conversation that follows you home, and before you know it, your family is getting whatever energy you have left. That's why I created something called the 5-minute reset. It's very simple, very practical. And honestly, it might be one of the most important habits you'll ever develop as a husband and as a father, because the goal is not to walk through your front door physically. The goal is to arrive emotionally. So here's how it goes. Step 1, I want you, before you walk into your house, all right, I want you to slow down. Seriously, just stop for a moment in your car, in your truck, whatever. Take a few deep breaths. Put both feet on the ground. Let your nervous system settle. Because most men are running at full speed right up until the moment they enter the front door. And like I said, their body may be home, but their nervous system is still at work. Their heart rate is still elevated. Their mind is still solving problems. Their attention is still scattered. And then they wonder why they're struggling to connect. Sometimes it's the first thing a father needs to do is simply slow down, to breathe, to release the tension, to leave all that in the driveway. All right? Number 1. Physical reset. Number 2, mental reset. I want you to ask yourself these 3 questions. What am I carrying that doesn't belong at home when you're about to walk to that front door? Number 2, what version of me is about to walk through that front door? Number 3, what does my family need tonight? Those 3 questions have the power to completely change the atmosphere of your home, because awareness creates choice. And choice, knowing that you have a choice, that creates change. So maybe what you're carrying is frustration. Maybe it's stress. Maybe it's anxiety. Maybe it's disappointment. Whatever it is, acknowledge it, name it, but don't hand it to your family. They didn't create it, and they shouldn't have to carry it. Okay? Step number 3. I love this one. Identity activation. This is my favorite step, because the last question you're going to ask yourself is before you walk through the front door. Remind yourself, when I walk through this door, I become the leader of this home. Not the employee, not the business owner, not the manager, not the problem solver, not the guy trying to hit targets. The husband, the father, the emotional tone setter, the leader, right? The man, the spiritual leader, the man who creates the atmosphere inside of his home. Because whether we realize it or not, your presence carries weight. Your mood carries weight. Your energy carries weight. And make no mistake, brother, your children feel it, and your wife feels it, and your home feels it. And one of the greatest gifts you can give your family is showing up intentionally, not perfectly, but intentionally. So as we land the plane, okay, listen, here's my challenge for you. Not next week, not next month, tonight. Or if you're listening to this in the morning today, whatever, here's a challenge. Win one core moment. Just one. All right. What were the 5 core moments? Communion moments, closing moments, correction moments, car moments, cornerstone moments. Maybe you're putting your phone away during dinner. Maybe it's staying 2 extra minutes at bedtime. Maybe it's taking your child for a quick drive to grab some ice cream. Maybe it's slowing down long enough to listen, or apologizing after losing your temper. But just one moment, one intentional moment, one Kairos moment, because fatherhood isn't built through grand gestures, like I said. It's built through repeated moments of pure presence. The truth is that children are not looking for perfect fathers. I've said that so many times this episode because I want you to get that into your head and into your heart. You don't need to be perfect. Just give yourself some grace. Let the pressure go. They're looking for available fathers, attentive fathers, fathers who notice them, fathers who make them feel like they matter. And here's the beautiful thing. You don't need to become a different man overnight. You simply need to become intentional with the moments already in front of you. One dinner, one bedtime, one car ride, one conversation, one moment at a time. Hopefully this resonated with you. There's so much more that I can unpack, but I think for me, this is something that's been so transformational. This has been so helpful for me, and I hope that it serves you powerfully. And listen, brother, if this episode resonated with you, I have a free gift for you to download, okay? And that's exactly it's a tool that I've been talking about this whole time. It's called the Present Father Playbook. And it's a breakdown of these 5 core moments. There's some reflection questions, some practical exercises. I break down Kairos and Chronos time. That's going to help you become more intentional as a husband and as a father. And if you're listening to the show and you want that Present Father Playbook, the link is in the show notes, or you can just go to dadnationco.com/present to get that free gift for you today. And listen, if you are here and you're taking in this episode and you're realizing that the issue isn't just your fatherhood, maybe the issue is stress, is emotional health. Maybe it's your marriage. Maybe it's your fitness. Maybe it's your mindset. Or it's a version of you that's showing up at home every single day. Well, that's exactly why I created the High Performance Husband Accelerator. Because becoming a more present father doesn't start with just parenting tactics. It starts with becoming a healthier man, a stronger man, a more emotionally aware man, a man who learns how to lead himself before trying to lead his family. And so inside the accelerator, I help husbands and fathers strengthen their marriage, improve their health, regulate their emotions, and build stronger habits to become the kind of man that their family and their wives so desperately need. Not just the man that provides for them financially, but the man that they can connect with. So if you'd like to learn more, hit the link below. There's going to be a link to book a complimentary strategy session. It's just me and you, and we're going to talk about where you are, what's getting you stuck, where you want to be, and whether the accelerator is the right fit for you. And lastly, brother, if this episode encouraged you, I want you to share it with another father, okay? Text it to a friend, send it to a brother, because here's the thing, we all wrestle with this stuff, right? You're not an anomaly. And if you think that you're perfect and you don't struggle with this, then there's probably a bigger issue, right? We all wrestle with this. So don't keep this gift to yourself. Share it with a friend who can benefit from it. All right, so listen, that is all for me today. I hope that this episode has resonated with you. I hope it has served you well, and I hope this, the Present Father Playbook is going to be an incredible resource for you. And listen, thank you for spending the time with me. Thank you for caring enough to grow for your family. Thank you for choosing to become more intentional. Because like I say in every single episode, when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. All right, listen, I'm cheering for you. I'm rooting for you. I'm in your corner. Have a great week. We'll talk soon. Thank you for tuning into the Dad Nation podcast today. Listen, if today's conversation challenged you, if it encouraged you or helped you level up in any area of your life, would you do me a favor? Take 60 seconds to rate and review the show on whatever platform you're listening on. This helps us reach more men who need to hear this message. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Dad Nation YouTube channel, where you're going to find full episodes, clips, and exclusive content designed to help you win at home just like you do at work. I remember, your family does not need perfection. They need your presence. Your leadership matters. So keep showing up, keep leveling up, and never forget, when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. We'll see you next time.